My lender called me the day I closed on my first property, and he told me that I made $100,000. For context, he has been doing loans for decades and has done thousands of loans. He told me he's never seen anything like this before. In this video, I want to tell you exactly what happened and, more importantly, how it happened. The way I approached this deal is something that any buyer can replicate. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through how I found this property, what I was actually looking for and why, the deal itself and what made it unusual, the renovations, how I added an ADU that now cash flows $2,000 a month, and what I'd tell myself if I were starting over. Let's get into it. Okay, first, let's discuss who I am and why I'm making this video. For context, hi everyone, my name's Epstein, and I'm a lifelong San Franciscan and realtor here in the Bay Area. If you're looking to buy, sell, invest, or even rent a home in or near San Francisco, I'd be more than happy to help you. Please don't hesitate to contact me at my contact information below. Today, I want to do something a little different. I want to pull back the curtain on my first owned property purchase. I'm going to share real numbers, real documents, and the things that I learned. My goal for this video is not to impress you, but rather it's how I think about purchasing properties. You may find this interesting, learn something yourself, or want to replicate my strategy. And just to say this up front, when I purchased the property, I knew that long-term it was gonna be an investment property for me. So I'm gonna talk about it as an investment. The reason I'm telling you this story is because of the mindset, the strategy, and the numbers. All of this applies directly to buyers thinking about their property purchase. So let's go. Now we're gonna talk about the strategy and what I was looking for. So before I tell you what I purchased, let me tell you what I was looking for and how I was thinking about it. My budget was under $500,000. The area that I chose to invest in was the greater Sacramento area. Specifically, I was drawn to a town called Citrus Heights, which is about 20 minutes north of Sacramento, right next to Roseville. The reason I chose this market was because of my familiarity with it. My parents used to live there and I was able to afford homes in the area. To really become comfortable though, I became familiar with the area and understood the market. My search criteria, or what investors called my buy box, was pretty specific. I was looking for a cosmetic fixer-upper that I could add value to. Something that was distressed or neglected on the surface, but structurally sound. The reason is simple. Cosmetic issues scares off buyers, which means less competition and lower prices. Luckily, cosmetic issues tend to also be the cheapest to fix. Some examples include paint, floors, and fixtures, things that are not structural. I wasn't looking to touch the foundation or the roof. In doing so, if you find the right deal, you can buy under market value and end up coming out ahead in the long run. Beyond the cosmetics and price point, I had two other requirements. First, I didn't want to be heavily cash flow negative. Now, I'll be honest here. It's hard to find a property that makes money from a cash flow perspective day one in California. I knew that going into it, so I wasn't overly concerned, but at the same time, I didn't want to bleed too much cash every month. Secondly, I wanted to be buying something below market value. I wanted to have built-in equity on day one. Not because I was looking for a flip, but because I wanted a safety net. In case anything goes sideways, like let's say the market shifts dramatically, it feels nice to have a cushion. Now here's the part most people skip when they talk about purchasing their first home. I was looking for about a year before I closed on this deal. I put in a lot of offers and I got rejected a lot. And honestly, the process was incredibly valuable, even though it was frustrating at times. After you tour enough properties and put in enough offers, you really get a sense of what the market is. By the end of it, I had a real good sense of what things were worth in the area. You really start to see through list price and understand what a property should sell for. And obviously, this is based on things like condition, location, and comps. This isn't something you can totally wrap your arms around with a spreadsheet. You really have to get eyes on real estate in person to develop this. You get it from being in the market, making decisions, and paying attention. So if you're in the searching process right now and you're getting beat up, don't let that bring you down because your instincts are growing. Don't underestimate that. Ultimately, I let the numbers guide me and not my emotions. I waited until the numbers made sense. Okay, next we're gonna talk about the deal itself, what I bought and what happened. So eventually, I found what I was looking for. A 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Citrus Heights, California. And let me be honest with you, it was in rough shape. It was beaten up by the prior tenants, but had no problem structurally. It was neglected and therefore needed work. Due to those factors, it was priced accordingly. I purchased the property for right around $400,000. Now here's where things get interesting. I got a mortgage, so obviously part of the purchase process is to get an appraisal done. You know, an independent appraiser comes in, evaluates the property against comparable sales in the area, and tells the lender, and therefore you, what they think the property is actually worth. Ultimately, the appraisal is an objective number that protects the lender and you, the buyer. Now, the day the appraisal came back, my lender called me. He's been in the mortgage business for a very long time and has done thousands of loans. He told me this one was quite special because he saw something he's never seen before. The property appraised for $500,000 in as-is condition. Now, I purchased the property for $400,000. So on paper, I had $100,000 of built-in equity on day one. Now, let me explain this as a concept because it's something that every buyer and especially investor should understand. When you're buying a property under market value, you're not just getting a good deal. You're creating a financial cushion that acts independently whether the market does good or not. Whether prices go up, stay flat, or go down, you own that gap. That equity is real. You can see it right there in black and white. And this equity gives you options. You can borrow against it. You can sell it and recapture it. It's money you created the day you purchased. Now that is why I spent a year searching. This is why I said no to so many deals that didn't make sense. When you find the right one, it's very well worth the wait. Okay, next we're gonna talk about the real benefits of owning real estate. Okay, now I wanna pause here before we go into the renovation section because there's a misconception that many, especially first-time homebuyers, have. When people hear about real estate investments, they typically tend to ask what the cash flow is. Now, don't get me wrong, cash flow is important. However, it's only one piece of a very large picture. Let me explain. First is appreciation. In California, historically, values have gone up over time. Now, this won't be the case every year and not in a straight line, but over a long enough time horizon, prices have gone up. The data here is clear, and when you're buying, you're betting on that long-term trajectory. The second is equity through principal pay down. Every single month you're paying that mortgage payment, a portion of that is paying down your loan balance. Now, whether you live in the home or your tenant is paying for this, essentially you're paying down your debt. Now, this is slow at first, but it becomes faster over time as your loan amortizes. Now, that's wealth building every single month, no matter what your cash flow situation is looking like. The third is tax benefits. Real estate ownership comes with significant tax advantages. Things like depreciation and deductions on mortgage interest, property taxes, and operating expenses. Now, the fourth is leverage. If you purchase a $500,000 property with 20% down, you're now controlling a $500,000 asset with $100,000 out of cash. Now, if that property goes up 10%, you didn't make 10% on your money. You're actually making 50% on your down payment. That's the beauty of leverage and how it works. It multiplies your returns in a way that no other asset class can match. And yes, the fifth most popular and common one is cash flow. Obviously, this is the difference between your income and expenses on a monthly basis. As you can see, cash flow is just part of the picture. It's one of just at least 5 reasons to own a property. In my opinion, purchasing a property in an area that's in demand could be well worth it, even if you're breaking even on cash flow, and in specific situations, even losing a little bit of money on cash flow. If you have a property that appreciates, pays down principal, gives you the tax benefits, and builds equity through leverage, wouldn't you think that's worth it? Obviously, it depends on the situation, but I believe it can be a very good investment. That's how I think about it, and I encourage you to think about it this way. Okay, next we're gonna talk about the renovation and making it market ready. Okay, so now I own a property, and obviously it needs work, so let's talk about it. The first phase was getting it market ready. Again, the prior tenants left it in pretty rough shape. We're talking the property had beaten up walls, tiles broken, was dirty overall, needed to be painted, and fixtures that were damaged or outdated. The house was functional, but it needed a real cleanup if it were gonna rent for market rates. I put in about $37,000 in that first phase. After the work was done, I got tenants in, stabilized the property, and eventually was about break even from a cash flow perspective. That's including mortgage, taxes, insurance, vacancy, and even maintenance reserves. It all comes out to about a wash. For those of you that don't know, breaking even on a purchase in California these days is very hard, especially because it's just a typical long-term rental in a 4-bed, 2-bath house. I didn't do anything crazy creative or had to do any extra work like operating an Airbnb per se. So again, year one, I'm not losing money really on a month-to-month basis. I'm building equity, paying down principal, and owning an appreciating asset. And on paper, because of that appraisal, I made a lot of money. In my opinion, this shows you that break even does not mean it's a bad deal. In fact, on this one, I would call it a very disciplined deal. Now, next up, we're gonna speak about the ADU and turning the garage into a cash flowing unit. Now, here's the part of the story that I'm most proud of and taught me the most. This property had a quirk about it that I knew going into it when I purchased it. The garage was not a typical garage. The prior owner actually got permits and legally converted it to an office space many years back. So instead of having a garage door, it was closed in and was just another part of the house. While this is the case, the owner never really fully built it out. The area was drywalled, but not completely finished. There was never flooring installed and it was on concrete slab foundation. It had windows and some electrical, given that it had a couple light fixtures, but no plumbing. So when I finished the renovation in the main house, and I'm gonna define that as the entire house without the garage, I actually rented it out to tenants and told them that I might be constructing that into a separate unit. I clearly outlined in their lease that the garage was not part of the premises, and I retained the right to do this construction while they were living there. After stabilizing the main house and getting the funds able to do this, I decided to take that project on. I decided to convert that garage into a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom ADU unit. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit for those that don't know. They are becoming quite popular in California and are being approved by cities so that they can meet the new housing requirements. Essentially, it's a self-contained living space with its own entrance, own kitchen, and own bathroom. In my case, it was built on a property that already has a primary structure. These have become one of the most powerful tools in California real estate at the moment. My garage conversion came out to 412 square feet. All in, the construction probably cost me about $70,000. Now, I want to be transparent about how this happened because it wasn't as easy as you might think. I did not just hire a contractor and write checks. If I were to hire a general contractor, it would have cost me well over $100,000. To keep costs down, I acted as the general on this project. It was much more grassroots. Due to the nature of the project not being so complex, I actually hired a drafter online rather than hiring an architect to come up with plans. I also hired subcontractors directly for each trade rather than hiring a GC. I even sourced most, if not all of the materials myself. Now, I was on the job site constantly. Even though I live in San Francisco and the property was in Citrus Heights near Sacramento, I was making the drive regularly, meeting with inspectors, making decisions on the fly, and trying to catch problems before they became expensive. And let me tell you, this project taught me things about construction that I would never have known. And this is coming from someone who has managed other major construction projects as well. This really taught me how long things take. I learned how budgets can move. Now, I knew going into this that projects typically always go over budget and over the projected timeline. Given that this was the largest project I've taken on myself from a cost and complexity standpoint, I felt every one of those lessons firsthand. If I was doing this all over again and I had to tell myself one thing, it would be that it's going to cost a lot more than you think and take a lot longer. Plan for that. That way, once you're in it, you can make decisions quickly, not second guess yourself, and avoid change orders wherever possible. In my experience, every change you made mid-project is something you pay more for. Now, once the ADU is finally completed, what did I do with it? I could have rented it out as a standard long-term rental. For that size unit in the area, I probably would have gotten about $1,100 a month in rent. But what I actually ended up doing was something completely different. Now, luckily, the property happens to be near some major hospitals in the area. Hospitals means traveling nurses. These healthcare workers are typically on 3 to 6 month long assignments and need furnished housing. They're stable, vetted, income-verified tenants who don't need standard 12-month leases. By renting to them, you're operating a midterm rental. And for the right property and right location, a midterm rental can generate substantially more money than a standard long-term rental. I'm currently renting that ADU for $2,000 a month. That's nearly double what a long-term rental would produce. Now here's where that math lands today. The main house, which is the 4-bed, 2-bath, rents for about $2,750 a month. When I account for all expenses for the property, that is roughly a wash or break even. The ADU generates about $2,000 a month. That cash flow is profit from the result of the project. I funded the ADU project with cash, so if I net $2,000 a month, I'll break even on the cost in about 3 years. After that, it's purely upside and profit. Just to say this one last time, I think ADUs are a real opportunity in the California market right now. Obviously, California has a housing shortage. Cities and counties need to build more units. Due to that, the state has made it significantly easier to permit and build these right now. If you own a property or are thinking of purchasing one and have ADU potential, this is a real value add. It adds to your rental income and can add to your appraised value. Okay, next we're gonna speak about what I would do if I were starting over. Well, first, I tell myself to be patient longer than feels comfortable. I searched for almost a year until a deal made sense. Believe me, there were many times where I thought about pulling the trigger on something decent, but ultimately I didn't. I waited until my criteria and numbers were just right. That discipline is probably what made the difference between a mediocre and good deal. I'd also tell myself that construction projects can easily take twice as long as a contractor says and end up costing a lot more than you think. And by the way, that's not just a knock on contractors, that's just how construction ends up working out. For example, things come up and construction materials get delayed all the time. You have to be ready to make decisions on the fly. Budget for it and be decisive when you can. Try to avoid changes and don't let the stress make you make a bad decision just for timing's sake. Next, I tell myself to think of real estate as a long-term wealth building machine rather than a short-term cash flow generating business. Don't get me wrong, cash flow matters, but it's only one of 5 or more things that is going to build you wealth in real estate. Now let me bring this back to you because if you're watching this channel, you're probably thinking about purchasing a property in or near San Francisco. Obviously, San Francisco is an expensive market. That's real, but here's what I want you to take from this video. You don't have to get everything right on your first purchase. Instead, you need to get in the market, make a smart decision, and start building. For you, that could be a condo in a strong neighborhood in the city. For others, it could be to live in a 2-unit building in house hack. That's when you live in one unit and rent out the other one to offset the cost of your mortgage. It might mean that you get something smaller than your dream home, but there you're able to build equity and use it to trade up later. If you can't afford what you want right now, that doesn't mean you should wait indefinitely. Instead, get strategic and do something that makes financial sense for you. It's not a terrible idea to build equity, learn the process, and then move up. I've seen a ton of people do this over and over again. Your first home doesn't have to be your forever home. It just has to be a good decision. Okay, so now let's quickly summarize. I purchased a home for $400,000. It appraised for $500,000, so on paper, I made about 100 grand on day one. I then put in about $35,000 to renovate it and stabilize it. The main house rents for about $2,750 a month, meaning that it about breaks even with all my expenses accounted for. I then built an ADU for about $70,000 and acted as the GC myself in order to save on cost. This is now rented as a midterm rental to traveling nurses for approximately $2,000 a month. I'm cash flow positive on that unit and my payback period is about 3 years. Now I made this video because the framework matters and not just to talk about the numbers. If you can, buy below market value. Understand all the way real estate builds wealth rather than just cash flow. Be patient in your search, do your homework. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If you're thinking about buying a home in or near San Francisco, whether you're going to own or occupy it or investment, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be more than happy to help you. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. So if you wouldn't mind, if this video was helpful, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. And lastly, the best way to support me is by sharing this video with friends or families that might find it useful. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.